Observational methods. Observational research design is defined as descriptive research that relies on observation and systematic recording of behavior of individuals in an unbiased way. Advantages of using an observational research design include that you could look at people in their natural habitat, and this has high ecological validity. Disadvantages, however, include that the observer's presence has an effect on behavior, which is called reactive validity. This method can only judge physical behaviors, and it's harder to deduce cognitions and motives. So why observe? Well, it's a direct and accurate way of measuring behavior in a systematic manner in precisely defined conditions. Self-reports often lack precision because what people say they do and what they actually do are two different things. Interviews suffer from recall error since people tend to be recounting past events. Also, questions in interviews can be easily biased by participants since they want to show themselves in a positive light. The first kind of observation method is observation without intervention. This includes naturalistic observations, which are where researchers observe behavior in the natural setting and is unobtrusive. This is more systematic, precise, and reliant on clear definitions of conditions. For example, observing drivers in a school zone by hiding in a car to measure their speed. Disadvantages of the naturalistic observation include how interesting behaviors may be infrequent or rare, and some events don't occur in public. There's no complete control over the circumstances that happen, and researchers can't examine processes during observation. Another type of observation without intervention method includes physical traces, which are non-reactive measures of people's behavior, which can be obtained from, for example, searching people's rubbish. This is called trace analysis, and this has ethical issues regarding privacy. I'm guessing things like physical traces are used by archaeologists and forensics, other professions. Finally, in observation without intervention, there is archival data, such as, for example, data mining digital traces and searches on Google or whatever. Moving along, observation with intervention is when there are experimental manipulations as well as participant observations. This type of observation can allow for infrequent events to occur, such as emergencies, and the use of a confederate to bring about the intended behaviors that one wants to study. It can also be used to observe things that occur in private or assess the limits of a certain behavior. Intervention provides some control, allowing assignment of conditions. Disguised observation is an aspect of observation with intervention in which, for example, in Rosenhan's research in 1973, there was a participant researcher who infiltrated a group with schizophrenia, pretending to have symptoms of schizophrenia. The researcher found that it was easy to get into the hospital but much harder to get out. There are, of course, ethical problems with disguised observation. Since deception is used, group members treat the disguised researcher as their own, and participants may adopt the attitudes of the group. In addition, we must consider the sampling behavior, whereby you need to take note on where and when the observations are being made, how to record, and if the intervention is to be used. Furthermore, there are different types of sampling. For example, continuous sampling are when all behaviors are coded within a certain time period. One processes a continuous stream of activities or behaviors. This has high ecological validity and provides precise information, but is quite cognitively demanding on the coder and requires intense training. Time sampling are when observers decide to record the occurrence of a specified behavior in a specified time period. There are two different types of time sampling, which includes instantaneous or target time sampling, whereby the observer decides to record in pre-selected moments and they record the instant the behavior occurs. They ignore recording everything else. Advantages of this includes that it focuses on rare events, but disadvantages include that it may not be able to generalize to other situations. Situation sampling is the second type of time sampling, whereby individuals study the same behavior in different situations and contexts. An advantage to this is that it has high ecological validity, but a disadvantage is that it may be expensive to carry out, since individuals need to visit multiple different locations. Furthermore, you have to consider quantitative measures of behavior, which includes the frequency or duration of the occurrence of the behavior or event of interest, and also consider the 4 measurement scales of nominal, ordinal, intervention, and ratio. Data reduction are used by researchers to summarize the observational quantitative data that I've mentioned before through descriptive measures like frequency, counts, means, and standard deviations. This includes coding behaviors. One must also consider qualitative records of behavior, whereby these are narrative records in written description, as well as audio or video of behavior, and these need to be classified and organized, and they require observers to be trained to record these behaviors according to an established criteria. Observer reliability is when independent observers agree in their observations. It can be increased by clear definitions, providing feedback about discrepancies and training. Higher inter-observer reliability increases researcher confidence and that observations are valid. One must also consider inter-observer reliability, which is assessed by calculating the percentage of agreement or correlations that depends on how behaviors were measured. So, for example, inter-observer reliability is equal to the number of agreements over the number of opportunities for the agreement multiplied by 100. In validity, usually the more complex the behavior, the harder it is to measure and achieve good inter-rater reliability, because, well, it's more complicated. There are a number of inter-rater reliability problems that exist. They include the observer effect, which is the presence of the observer or stimuli could affect behaviors and results. There is also the error of apprehending, whereby the observer is not able to see what other observers see. There is also the observer error, whereby it is an error that can be caused by other factors like inexperience, poorly defined behavioral units, observer drift, tiredness, etc. There are also observer biases, which is the tendency to expect something to happen, whether you have a high or low expectancy of that behavior. There is also error of recording, which includes the use of poor techniques, bad equipment, inexperience, or mental lapse in the observer. And finally, you must consider computational error, which is caused by inappropriate use of statistical analyses. Reactive measures is the change in participants' behavior due to awareness of being observed. So to minimize this, one could make observations surreptitiously, use non-human observers like cameras, or make observers blind to the goal of the study. This also is known as Hawthorne effect, when individuals change their behavior because they are being observed. Lastly, you have to consider intra-rater reliability, which is the reliability within the same rater, to find out whether they would code the same thing in different times or situations. So in summary, we looked at observational methods, including the observational research design, its advantages and disadvantages, why use this research design method, the different types of observational research design, such as observation without intervention, which includes naturalistic observation, physical traces, and archival data, as well as observation with intervention, which includes disguised observation. You also have to consider sampling behavior, types of sampling, which includes continuous sampling, time sampling, instantaneous target time sampling, situation sampling. We also looked at quantitative measures as well as qualitative measures of behavior, data records, observer reliability, inter-observer reliability, problems in inter-rater reliability such as observer effect, error of apprehending, observer error, observer biases, error of recording, computational errors, and we also looked at reactive measures, the Hawthorne effect, and intra-rater reliability. Thanks for watching.